When we were on our Thursday crossover show with Perna, those guys as Broncos fans were pushing the Bo Nix propaganda. They were
Let's reset again. Broncos 38, Falcons 6, both teams 6-5. Go ahead.
Nice. They were, pushing the Bo Nix propaganda, and we're saying, rookie of the year, and you're like, okay, come on, Jaden Daniels is rookie of the year. Let's settle down now. Bo Nix has been playing better, but come on. And yet, Jaden Daniels has the first sort of bad game of his real career so far, and Bo Nix looked absolutely spectacular in this game. And I don't think it's enough to make one jump the other, but that conversation got a lot closer after this week's of games than it had before that. Nix was great, and to an extent, maybe we should have seen this coming a little bit, because Bo Nix this season, when he's been kept clean, actually has insane production and performance and grades. Like his PFF grade from a clean pocket is 82. The numbers are good across the board. 70% completion rate, 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, 10 big time throws to only 3 turnover-worthy plays. All good. And it just falls off a cliff when he's pressured, right? It goes down to a PFF grade of 39, which is a 29 passing grade. That's terrible. I mean, that's a massive, massive drop. Of course, the Falcons bring no pressure ever. They're the worst pass rushing team in football. They do not affect the quarterback. The Falcons?
Panthers.
I don't know. And they pressured Bo Nix in this game 5-6 times? Not at all, basically. So we possibly should have sort of seen this coming of they're not going to pressure him at all. And when he doesn't get pressured, he tends to play pretty damn well.
Yeah, he was really good in this game. And I mentioned on the instant reaction last night, I mean, we're starting to – this is one of the first times I've looked and said, wow, the Sean Payton offense is bringing something to the table above and beyond, right? We didn't get to see that necessarily with Russell Wilson. I know Wilson's stats looked good last year, and they made a bit of a run in the middle of the season, but I never looked at it and was like, man, that Sean Payton-Russell Wilson connection, finally seeing them together. I think you're starting to see Nix's development and a little rhythm coming out of this offense. Creativity with Marvin Mims in the backfield, and man, Nix looks comfortable. The numbers are ridiculous. He was 28 for 33 for 307, 4 touchdowns, 1 touchdown on a screen. But man, the connection here with Nix and Sean Payton, I think is really dialed in.
Yeah, and the offense is just working. I mean, the average depth of target, like Nix pushed the ball down the field a couple of times, but the average depth of target was still incredibly low, and yet they were still having this much production, which means
2 screen touchdowns.
Which means it's working. Like all the short stuff is cooking. Like you're giving the ball out to people in the backfield or receiver screens, and they're making plays. I mean, Troy Franklin powers his way into the end zone on a little screen.
Unlocking Troy. But yeah, I think the ability to spread the ball around, and look, they protected him well, as you mentioned. The Falcons' pass rush is not great, but the Broncos doing a really nice job spreading the ball around. And Nix's comfort in the pocket. Remember early in the season, a little fidgety, footwork wasn't great, wasn't standing in there on simple throws. Like that comfort level, that development has been really good. We talk a lot about in-season development and how difficult it is for quarterbacks. It's not necessarily, and it might not be pure mechanical, like do these drills, and these are the things that are going to fix it. A lot of it is just the mental game and the comfort level, and that changes things. Bo Nix looks far more comfortable now than he did those first 3 weeks, standing in there and delivering and not making those he's off platform and just kind of lobbing balls into the secondary as prayers. Now he's decisive and making definitive, like the seam route, big time throw that he made right before the 2-minute warning was just outstanding.
Yeah.
And you're seeing more and more of that from Bo Nix.
And it's interesting, like on the one hand, you can say, okay, but this was against the Falcons who can't rush the passer at all. It's a great environment to look good. I also, though, and when you face a better pass rushing team, maybe it all goes away. I do wonder, though, that simply experiencing those live reps in a situation where you're not under pressure could have a permanent or long-lasting development plus anyway. Like, yeah, it's going to get harder, but there's probably virtue to simply having those experiences of you got to play basically a whole game without being under pressure, which is entrenching better habits of like, here's how you operate from a pocket without needing to panic and run and, try and ad lib and bail from a play really quickly. so that when the pass rush does come, you're better equipped to just stay in the pocket and make a passing play anyway.
I think there's something to it.
What do you make of the Marvin Mims at running back thing?
I love it. I mean, he's an explosive player, and this is what I'm talking about. Like with Payton, I think you start to week after week. There's a lot of fantasy centric people that love Marvin Mims over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
me included. Not fantasy because I just thought he was a good player, deep threat. Everybody's like, how do you use this guy? How do you use that guy? And Payton's been playing this long game. Stick to the process. Get him involved. Get him involved. I think when Payton starts to get comfortable that he's going to move players around. He was the guy. He was the guy who loved Taysom Hill. When he's going to get comfortable tapping into different players' skill sets, I think you're onto something here. And I think that says a lot about, again, the relationship between him and Nix and how much trust he has with all of his personnel right now. Because nobody on the Broncos offense, it's Courtland Sutton. It's not a bunch of stud players, but they've got deep threats. They've got speed with Mims, and Mims is a mismatch type of guy. So, yeah, move him around and create those mismatches.
And yeah,
they had a 30-something yarder with him coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, it was a bust. That was such a good play. Like, so he's effectively become a running back at this point. Like, he's lining up in the backfield more than he's lining up out wide. But remember, years ago, we said that everyone thinks of running backs that can be good receivers as like cheat codes, right? But if you look at the data, they actually don't have that big an effect, because even a running back split out, even a good receiving running back split out as a slot receiver or out wide is less effective doing that than a wide receiver doing that. And generally speaking, though you remember the plays where it breaks down, like, oh, look, there's Von Miller covering a running back out wide and it gives up a play. Generally, defenses are pretty good at accounting for that, and it doesn't actually have the effect you think it has. What does break defenses more is putting wide receivers in the backfield. And on this play, the big play to Mims out of the backfield, he started off lined up in the slot at wide receiver. He was stacked on the right side just like a regular wide receiver. So from a personnel standpoint, if you're Atlanta, you're like, okay, here's wide receiver Marvin Mims. Let's match up with the DB. Then they line up. He's still in the slot, stacked behind a receiver. Then they motion him into the backfield, and now you've got split backs back there. And then he comes out of the backfield to the other side of the formation and catches a swing for a big gain, and it just broke the defense. Like, they just didn't account for it at all. It's a great play. Like, it's the perfect play to sort of make that point of wide receivers that can go into the backfield cause problems for defenses.
It's honestly one of the first games I've looked and been like, wow, there's Sean Payton, the guy that we deemed an offensive genius. Now, he helped develop Drew Brees, but he was also blessed with Drew Brees in New Orleans. Like, that goes hand in hand. And then when Brees left, remember how often Sean Payton won without Drew Brees. Brees is hurt. We got Bridgewater. We got Jameis. We're winning. They had Trevor Siemian. They're still winning games. This feels like the first time in a while I've been this impressed with Payton's offense. And it coincides with Bo Nix's development.
That play actually started off in empty. I didn't realize multiple players motioned into the backfield. Like, they lined up in empty, and then two different players.
In his bag, yes.
Two different players went in the backfield, neither one of which is a running back on paper. Like, they motioned Troutman, the tight end, and Marvin Mims into the backfield.
Broncos defense deserves a ton of credit as well. They bottled up Bijan Robinson, 12 carries for 35 yards. That's under 3 per carry. Picked off Kirk Cousins. Nick Benito with another huge game. A couple sacks. Just making big plays against the run and rushing the passer. Broncos defense looking good once again. I thought these teams were very similar coming in, or similar level of team. And the Broncos,
really impressive.
This is an emphatic win for them.
Like, genuine statement game from Denver, and they're now taking control of that 7th seed in the AFC. I mean, they're the team with the winning record. I mean, if they string together a couple of wins, not only do they get in there as the 7th seed, and because they have the control essentially. We said this again on the show with Perna. Denver plays Kansas City better than a team of that level should. If they get into the postseason, that's a team Kansas City doesn't want to play. Now, they will, and if they have to, but like, nobody in Kansas City is looking at that and being like, if they scrape in at like 9 wins or whatever, a lot of other teams might be like, cool, we face Denver, this is a good opportunity to win. I don't think Kansas City's looking at that as an easy game if they have to play them.
They had them beat last week. Just the blocked field goal. And that was the other thing I mentioned last night. Denver bouncing back from that heartbreaking loss against Kansas City. Really impressive that they were able to do that.
There's also a fascinating scenario that may play out where Kansas City could determine whether Denver makes it in at all because they face them
week
18, where presumably Kansas City may have stuff locked up. Maybe the number 1 seed is still up in the air and they'll be playing. But like if they have the choice of, do we try and eliminate Denver or do we rest our starters because we don't really care? And then they have to play them again in the postseason.
Well, if they have a bye, they won't care because Denver will be the 7 seed.
Well, yeah, they won't have to face them in the first round, but
Kansas City,
they might play them again.
If they were the 2 seed, they would have to play them.
But
first round,
again, going way ahead, imagine a scenario where Kansas City rests their starters, which enables Denver to get into the playoffs, and then in the division round they have to play them, and it's as close as it was the last game.
It probably wouldn't happen because the Chiefs would be playing for the 1. I get it, though. Yeah,
there's a scenario where they can meet in the postseason, and the only reason Denver were in there is because Kansas City rested the starters.
It could be crazy.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.